Welcome to Evolve Here Now, the podcast for leaders who are advancing the meaning and impact of business success, full spectrum health, medicine, and high performance in all areas of life.
This is your home if you are a leader who is ready to step up your impact, inspiration, and personal evolution so that you can serve at the level you know you're capable of and beyond.
Join us now as we recharge, elevate, and accelerate you on your journey into this accelerated evolution community of the world's top influencers.
I'm your host, Talia Jacqueline.
I'm the founder, Satyan Raja, and once again, it's time to accelerate your evolution and your leadership.
Welcome to episode 2 of Evolve Here Now. Today I am so happy to introduce to all of you a personal mentor of mine, a huge role model, and specifically in the healthcare world, a doctor and master coach in training of accelerated evolution, Dr. Juan Baez. Dr. Baez grew up in Colombia, where he attended medical school and trained in internal medicine and infectious diseases. Dr. Baez has a 15-year practice in New Jersey, where he helps his patients in prevention, treatment, and counseling of infectious diseases. But what makes Dr. Baez so special and unique in his own right as a doctor is that he really brings in the heart. He has really brought back heart and the completeness of healing and of medicine. And he's integrated the emotional component of illness, which is really the underlying root of all symptoms of disease. So I'm so happy to bring in Dr. Baez here on this call, who's going to share his background, his experience, and his wisdom and what he's learned along the way, which will definitely elevate wherever you're at in your own life as a doctor and as a helper in humanity. So Dr. Baez, welcome. On this call, we also have Satyan Raja, the founder of Accelerated Evolution. Dr. Baez, why don't you share a little bit of your background and what's brought you here?
Yes, hi, Talia. Hi, listeners. So I'm Dr. Juan Baez. I indeed grew up in Colombia, in Bogota, and completed my medical school over there. Whenever you finish medical school in Colombia, you must work for the country for a year in order to get your license. So at that time, I actually chose to work in the Amazons, and which is in the northern part. Colombia is the northern part of the Amazons, for those of you that don't know that one, which was a fantastic experience because, what drove me into medicine was just that help. There was something about helping others, that was so exciting about medicine. And being there without any resources, just connecting with people was a lesson on itself. It was a very, very interesting time. I was very lucky. I think some of us are very lucky if we pay attention to the fact that the United Nations Development Program was investing some money there. So they actually turned my little medical center into almost triple it in size. They gave us new boats, new ambulances. And as a young kid, literally as a young physician, that was exciting because that meant I could just expand my coverage, go all the river. In the Amazon, you move by rivers mostly. The closest I was to a secondary center level hospital was about 5 hours, by ambulance. So the way we move over there is by boat. So it was fascinating to be able to go on the weekends, go take the dentist with his equipment and go and serve the community. So the fascinating thing always is there is knowledge on how to treat diseases, but at the end, there's more than that is needed. What I mean by that is people need knowledge, people need encouragement. So believe it or not, the commonest diseases in the Amazons were diarrhea, malnutrition, respiratory diseases, ear infections, illnesses that with a little bit of education, people wouldn't have to deal with. Yet that's what affected them mostly. just knowing what to eat, how to take care of themselves. So again, fascinating. So what I did at that time is I just started little radio shows that had some coverage over that area, and it was very, very exciting times. Interestingly enough, I was supposed to be there for only 6 months. I ended up staying for 2 years because it was so exciting. But what happened is when I was looking at the numbers, meaning why people kept coming a year and a half into it, there were the same problems. You know, I wasn't making enough impact. One person alone cannot make impact. So I had this great idea of starting to write projects. And bottom line, we need more money to get more people, to have more equipment, to reach more people, to educate more. And these basic things are not necessarily at the core of the interest of the government there, at least 20 years ago or so. So I was just faced with that moment of like, oh man, here it is. Am I going to stay here, one person trying to change this, or what? And that's when I said, well, I have to definitely move on with what my original plan was, which is go to this area, work, you know, get my license, and then move on and get some training. So that's when I eventually decided to move here to the United States, and started my training in internal medicine, and then infectious diseases. Okay, and I did this in the city at Cabrini Medical Center, which is affiliated with Mount Sinai Medical Center. So it was fantastic. It was really, really at the time where HIV in particular was booming. Okay, so this is 1995 to 2000, which is around the time where the whole epidemic changed from people dying to surviving once the medications, the treatments were refined. Again, all throughout this time, the issue was education. The issue was, you know, how do people feel when they're fighting diseases? Right? We knew that there were medications that help people better, that help people feel better and do better immune system wise. But some people were just so depressed. Their lives were so chaotic that no matter what medications you gave them, they didn't necessarily do better. They couldn't even take the medicines that were there available for them. So that was interesting, you know. Now that I complete treatment, I was in the city. Now I have a young family that I started then. The question was, do I want to stay in the city running like crazy, or do I want to move to New Jersey, the suburbs, for those of you that know, where there's a little bit more time and more space for the family to grow. So that's what I did. And I started working in the Westfield area in New Jersey, which was great. I mean, every time that you start with a new practice, you work very hard to catch up with your partners to get at the financial level. So that took about 3 to 5 years. That's the usual time. So the interesting thing is, I will say, let's say 5 years is what it took to say, oh, wow, I'm a full-grown infectious diseases, successful as it is. I was getting all these different honors in magazines as best doctor and this and that. I'm busy, yet there was something interesting going on within me. You know, all this running around, all this seeing more people. You know, for those of you that know what's going on with the environment in medicine in the United States, you know that in the last 7-10 years, you know, the economy, the business has changed. So the changes that have happened, you know, have led to less reimbursement for physicians. So physicians, what we do is we see more patients. So that by itself means less time to interact with them.
Yeah.
Now, here again, something was happening. Over time, I was seeing the same patients, let's say diabetics, coming back with same food infections, wound ulcers. You know, their sugar is no control. People with the blood pressure is no better. Their weight is up. So it's sort of like, what's going on? You know, why we have all these great medicines? Why we have all these great tools to heal wounds and control blood pressure and all this stuff? What's happening? You know, so it was always this urge, this feeling. What else could I do? You know, and of course, because there's so little time to dive into this. I mean, prescribing antibiotics is an extremely easy thing. Going through a workup on somebody that's sick is something that we do quite easily. Now, the challenge is when you see that there's something else behind that, you know, and you need more time, and then you ask, what's going on with you? And that opens a whole Pandora's box, because then they're having trouble with their family, they're depressed, their self-esteem is terrible, their job is this and that. So now you can tell why things are bad. Why can't they just take care of things? You could tell anybody, look, eat well, exercise, take these medicines. But if they're not feeling well, if there's no purpose in their life, right, they won't do it. They cannot do it. Even if they want, they just cannot. Some people are rushing like crazy, just like physicians, to hardly make enough money to survive, to pay their bills, right? So in that environment, it's very difficult to get better, to heal. Yet the question at that moment was what to do. And the question is still true, what to do in this setting. Most people are rushing and they have no time to slow down, eat appropriately, and do the things that they need to do for themselves. Okay? And this is just the actual situation. What brought us here, which is all the life story that we have from our families, from our parents, from our past, from our relationships, are so powerful, and they have such an incredible impact on why we do things. So the best thing that I've had for the first 10 years of my life was just referring them to some form of therapy. Because obviously saying go to the gym and go to a dietitian wasn't good enough. But what if you could spend some time talking to somebody that at least may help you? And again, it was such a long process. Therapy takes so long. Any form of talk therapy takes so long. Or giving medication then has side effects. Plus, it's expensive. When you have to go to a therapist every week, spend a copay that you don't have. Again, we're talking about people having difficulty with money. It was very, very challenging. So,
and also the time commitment, right? Of people coming out frequently, right, for them to have a good therapeutic intervention and success and help, they have to come out regularly for weeks, months, maybe even more, even years.
And years, you should, as you know, talk therapy takes a long time. Going over things, takes a long time for people to realize what's going on and then change. So, it was challenging. And at the same time, as I'm rushing myself, I have 2 hospitals, I have office hours, then I have a family that's busy. There's no time to any of those things. So I'm seeing it, but I'm living it. So I'm a physician living what my patients are going through. I remember very, very, very well, in the very first few years of my life, I was eating a sandwich in between hospitals, so running to the office because I have no, quote, time to take care of myself either. Forget working out or anything like that. So I'm not even a good reference, for people. And I'm sure most docs that are listening to this, that are on that rat race will feel identified with that. So suffering and not being able to make an impact on people is what moved me to. And I have heard of Tony Robbins, So it just happened that he came to New Jersey to one of his presentations. And it was just amazing. It was mind blowing. I love his approach. You can change in, as he says, in a heartbeat. I really love his approach. And I went through the whole thing. And in a nutshell, as you guys know, it's about changing state and knowing a few things about beliefs and a whole series. It's a very comprehensive way of approaching behavior. And I love it. I love it because I use it on myself, and I also use it with my patients. When somebody was feeling depressed or sad, I cannot tell me some big story, bam, I knew how to change the state immediately, which is what Tony does, and then reframe. So that was fascinating. That was good 3-4 years of my life, but that's just like a Band-Aid, another Band-Aid. That's a great form of therapy, but that's another Band-Aid. I can help somebody at a moment, but that doesn't deal with the core. There's more. There's all these signs that we call disease, all this blood pressure, diabetes, overweight, and whatever other illness you want to call. Most of them are just the tip of the iceberg. They're just just like being depressed, we call it depressed, or whatever other state of mind. They're just reflections of what's going on deep down there. We diagnose them, we give them labels, In medicine we do that. Most times we do that with things, all right? But they're just a symptom. They're just a manifestation. It's like the projection of a slide. The challenge is what's going on with the slide. How can we fix the slide, not just the projection on the wall, all right? The symptoms, the signs that we deal with in medicine mostly are projections, and we try to fix them by, in the case of allopathic medicine, as you guys know, we fight it. High blood pressure, we lower it. High sugar, we lower it. Illness, we fight it. We kill the bacteria. There are many other ways of healing as well. But again, whatever they do, we're just dealing with the symptoms. The interesting thing is the core. So that kept me moving. I went through peak potential, which was also a very interesting process. And that's where actually I get to meet Sachin. And I always remember him, walking into the room. There were at least 100 people there, maybe 50 on that particular segment. And I always remember he walked in. The first thing he did is he connected with everybody. I was fairly far away. And I know that when the guy walked in, I felt like the guy's looking at me. It's like he's reading me. It's like he knows what's going on, So that by itself was incredible. Just somebody's coming into a room, doesn't know anybody yet. The first thing he does is stop, slow down, and connect before he opens his mouth. And of course, we go through the whole event. It was scheduled. But then he talks about the program that he's running and what he's doing, and how he can have an impact and make an impact on charges, on the emotional part of our beings, quickly. And again, these things just I believe nowadays. Either you resonate with something or somebody, or you don't. I didn't know the guy. I didn't know any technique. He didn't even say what he did or anything like that. It was just something that I felt that I needed to experience. And I know it was like February, and then this course was in April. I want to think it was the first one a few years ago. And I just knew I had to. And the money, and it's far away. It's in Canada and the West Coast. Oh, man, well, it will happen. It's just what it is. And I know that if you're listening to this, you either believe it or it feels okay or not, So I knew that I had to do it. And of course, that week was an amazing week because it was seeing examples. That was the other fascinating thing here. There was no explanations and this is what I do. This is so good. No. Who has a problem? Who has a challenge? What's going on? Who has a charge? Different people volunteer and then seeing the change immediately. Well, like mind-blowing. And then diving into how this works was amazing. So I learned a set of skills that I could use again and have similar outcomes from people that are aware of their challenges and they want to change. That was amazing. And that, of course, led to a more extended learning. Of course, I come, as you guys know, medicine and my training is being learning and studying deeper and diving and mastering whatever it is that I do. So I wanted to understand how this stuff works. And that's what I've been doing the past 3 years. We've been diving into the creator of into the material that the person that came out with the core principles, the core processes has written, developed, and how these things came up to an end, how they work, how they have an impact, how they're based. They're not only psychological processes, but they have an emotional component and they have a spiritual component, things that I wasn't acquainted with. So it's been a process not only on learning the processes and the techniques, but as I've dived into them with a team of people, I've done probably the most important part, the biggest impact that this has had on me, which is on me, okay, in my own story, in my own charges, in my own challenges, okay, and that was that's kind of in a not in a nutshell, in a long nutshell, what's been going on, what brought me here. So dealing with people that come in with a sign, a complaint, knowing that there's something behind the complaint, beyond the complaint that needs to be dealt with, okay? Knowing that people are beautiful, they're all amazing, but they have something that if tweaked will make them shine even better, okay? I have had this throughout this workup. We've had, symbols. So one of those symbols is the lighthouse. I believe we're all like lighthouses, But unfortunately, with all the stuff that we allow to put on top of ourselves, we're covered. We don't shine. We're all beautiful. Everybody has a beautiful essence, but we're challenged by all the different things that happen in our lives. So knowing that, and now learning a set of tools and skills and techniques that have helped me make changes in my life, and then allow me to connect again, go back to that connection, that presence, that Satchin first, demonstrated when I first met him without even knowing him, and then having a deeper impact on my patients. It's been a great joy and a big change in my practice.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks for taking the time to give us the full, there's so many parts of that I didn't even know. I didn't know that you were in the Amazon for a while. So that was a interesting experience. Please, Talia.
Yeah, thank you, Juan. And, I'd love for you to also just share, you're such a living demonstration of where you are now compared to where you were even when you started your career as a doctor, and especially through your journey with Accelerated Evolution. I'd love for you to share, your success and the changes that you were just speaking of in more detail, so that the doctors listening and those of you who are listening really understand, what we're about and what the journey is that we're inviting you on.
Right. So, again, medical school, Amazon for 3 years, internship, residency, fellowship. That's 15 years there, where we physicians, you guys listening know what this means. We're being told what to do, This is the way it is, there's the physiopath. This is how people become ill, and these are the treatments. This is what you should be doing. We talk about standards of care. We talk about evidence-based. This is how it should be done. So we're all very much, and that's what I did at least, work based on evidence-based. What I studied, what my understanding of disease and illnesses was, and how to treat it. So we're into that track. I was into that track. Yet I always felt that urge that there was more. So that, I think, it's a first part. Some people have that urge, some others don't. Some people are just into that own track, and this is true for any other area of science or knowledge. Call it religion, call it politics, call it cooking. In any other career, there are different ways to do things, right? Well, I knew one way of doing things, and most physicians in the allopathic world are training one way of doing it. There's a whole bunch of people that only see that as the way, okay? Well, I had this urge. I felt that there was more than just that, okay? And I think that's an important part, because it's true also for people that are suffering. There's people that are suffering, that are not aware that they're suffering, and they will stay there, and they will stay there. There's nothing to do for those. But those that are not that are suffering, but something, it could be done, there's some option. So that's what happened to me, I will say. I was very much trained into what to do, and I being a very, very docile member of the society. This is what a physician does. This is how he does it best. Okay, it's a caring doctor and also a caring family member. Okay, I'm a good son. This is what good sons do. This is what a good husband is supposed to do, and a good father, which is, in my case, that meant work hard and support. This is very much in the Latin culture, at least in my part of the world, work hard and support. And that's what I was doing. My life was just about working very hard, seeing an average 50, 60 patients a day, okay? And then get home and spend every minute that I could with the family, sometimes crankier than other times, I have to admit it. And that's what life was about. until I decided to make a change, until I step into that other world that I share with you, the Tony Robbins, until I realized that I could change my state from being stressed and no time to saying, hey, come on, I can slow down and I can eat and I can do different things, okay? So the interesting thing is that as I started diving into what kept me trapped in my tracks. So what were my tracks? Where my tracks were essentially a practice of medicine that meant see lots of patients so you can make enough money to support your standard of living. Okay. Be there in the family that you are, because that's the way it should be. Okay. Believe on something because that's how you were raised. I could probably enumerate all the things where I was, kind of trapped there, And so the fascinating thing is that there was always the discomfort with all of these things. There was a sense of unfulfillment or unhappiness about having to rush so much to see more patients when I wanted to slow down to deal with some of them. There was a challenge in my relationship as well throughout this time, and even on beliefs. What is it that I believe or don't believe? So the interesting thing is with Tony Robbins, change of state and all this stuff, that didn't change much. But with these processes, with the accelerated evolution processes, it was a complete different approach. It was a complete different way because I realized that I couldn't change. The place where I was is, that's how it is. Doctors are supposed to work very hard and are supposed to comply, and because that's how the system tells us to do it, right? If I work less, then I'm going to make less money. It doesn't make sense. Why would I even do that? By the way, most physicians, that's all we know how to do. We don't know anything else. We're not good business people. Well, some are. Some of my colleagues are amazing, but very few. Most of us just, all we know is see patients, care for them, love them, do their best, and then get some money from that. So I was trapped in those tracks. Throughout this processing, all the different elements, sharing time with you, you were one of the people I work with. I found out that the things that kept me, the fears, the limitations, the beliefs that I had, okay, were unfounded. I could move actually. Yes. I could just change. And that was the fascinating thing. That was as simple as that. So I remember I was part of a multi-specialty practice. We were very busy, great, amazing doctors, but finances weren't the greatest. And that's a whole other discussion in another setting. The challenge was how to leave my beloved friends, my beloved partner, the people I've been working with for 15 years, how to do that. And by the way, if I go out, and that when you leave a group, you have to go far away, who's going to want to call me? Nobody knows me, I thought. So just making a decision that powerful to me, was made so much easier through this processing. All right. So I actually indeed take a step. I passed my letter of resignation. I left, and what happened was just it was incredible, because I'm working almost half of what I was working before, and I'm keeping up with that income that I thought it was impossible to keep, short from running like crazy, So that was an incredible change by itself. I had some changes happen at a personal level as well, at the same magnitude, okay? And in my connection with my patients now, instead of seeing them only for 10, 15 minutes, now all of them have at least half an hour with me, which is very, very interesting, because now we can develop a stronger connection, and dive deeper into what's affecting them, what's making them feel ill. So most of them come up with that sense of, wow, this wasn't just another pill, another antibiotic, another antiviral. There was something else happening in my life that changed, that got better because of that. So that's how my professional life, personal life, my relationship with my patients, okay, and my life also in general, in terms of making myself a priority. Meaning now I go to the gym and I tell people, hey, if I'm not in good shape, how am I going to be an example for anybody? And I could see that, how before running like crazy as a doctor, no time, probably looking weaker and not strongest. How could I tell anybody, go to the gym, do something? I'm not an example of that, versus, showing by example, teaching by example, which makes a huge difference, So my routine in terms of what I eat, in terms of what I'm doing to keep up with myself, with my health, changed dramatically. Okay, my professional life has changed dramatically, and now I'm of course working on diving deeper into my patients, not only my patients but the people that I touch. Okay, into having a deeper impact into their life, into their health, to put it like that, than just putting a Band-Aid at one moment. Band-Aids are needed. If we fall and scratch ourselves, we need to clean the wound and put a Band-Aid and deal with it. So, hey, what we do in medicine is needed. There's no doubt about it. But it is deeper. And that's the whole big thing that I'm sure you're going to ask me next.
Yes. Thank you for sharing your story. I think that so many people can relate to that. Doctor, any field of help, specifically doctors. And I think that what you're saying is so key, that the essence of you, like when you say going deeper into this, I think that's the heart of everyone who is in this field. There's an inherent part of you that really just wants to help and really wants to serve. And I think it comes down to making a choice to do that, especially when you're in a system that doesn't entirely support that. So it becomes your own choice, your own decision. So I'd love for you, yes, to please continue and share what you found and what you're finding in this diving deep into this work and to accelerated evolution.
Yeah. And I'd like to get a little bit more specific and ask you, how would you describe or share what accelerated evolution is? For me, it's a very simple way of finding the mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual dimension of illness and wellness, and helping people get to a place of calmness and peace and acceptance. It helps them get in touch with their wisdom, their own innate knowing, their own motivation, their own inner inspiration to make positive life changes. That's one of the ways I would describe it. But from your background, how would you describe what it is, how it works?
Yeah, it's interesting. As you said it, there's so many different ways to approach it, like from the spiritual part, that we're all energy, like kind of like Deepak Chopra will say, well, just energy and manifestation of it. There's different ways to look at it. I think they're all just different languages. They're different languages. But once you understand them, they all say the same thing. I think we're all perfect. And in a nutshell, I would say we're all perfect. Well, we put things on top, layers on top of ourselves, that makes us so confused that at a given moment, at this moment, we don't even know where we're operating from. So I don't know what language you guys that are listening speak in terms of is it an identity? Is it a psychological? Is it a spiritual? Is it charges? Whatever. But the simplest way, I'm extremely simplistic in a way, which is complicated because this is it's challenging because this is evidently not that simple. But the core is we are beautiful and perfect. We're the perfect essence of being. As we grow, and we're born perfect, right? But as we grow, we incorporate, we accommodate, we accept, especially in those first 5 years, beliefs, identities that somehow we make them ours. So now I'm Christian or Catholic or Jewish or whatever. Now I'm a good boy. I'm a good citizen. I'm a good Colombian, whatever. I'm a good believer. I'm a good professional. I'm a good son. I'm a good brother. I'm a good, whatever it is that you call it. So all these identities and things, and then traumas happened. Boy, we make conclusions out of those traumas and those situations. So we had another layer, okay? And And so we carry all these things. We're like an onion, unpeeled onion, but our core is beautiful. And I'm sorry I keep saying that, but that's what it is. We're all perfect. We just have all these layers. So what happens is that disease is literally like a spot in the outside of that onion. A challenging situation, a pain, a discomfort, a distress, at any level of our lives, family, health, finances, it's like a spot on the outside of that onion. All right. So that's kind of how I see now disease or a challenge in any area of our lives. It's the outside. It's just a manifestation of a lot of things that are going on deeper. So to answer the question of what is AE, AE is a way to hop into that spot, recognize that spot, and maybe know that the spot is not so bad. Actually, the spot is like an alarm. It's telling us, hey, do something about this. So what we do now in AE, we use that spot maybe to guide us into deeper levels and kind of recognize, in a very special, fast, powerful way, some of those layers. And remember, those layers are different from everybody. There's no way to standardize this in any way. Every ride into the layers of that onion to find the beautiful, us that we are, the beautiful essence of who we are, the being. Okay, it's what we do in AE, and there are different ways to do it. One of them is just understanding that spot has a good intention, the intention of maybe just calling attention so we can do something about it. Okay, or maybe what appears to be a pain, again, or what appears to be a challenging situation, again, it's a call. It's a call to remove some of those layers and recognize that we created the problem and that there was no problem to start with, or recognizing that even though I thought I'm poor, to use just one term, it's not true. Through some of this process, I could recognize how wealthy I am, So it's changed dimensions. So there's a lot of work that I've learned, with polarities, and that again is a whole another chapter that I'm sure we'll address at another podcast. But working with polarities is a core, it's a central part of what we work in Accelerate Evolution. Because whenever I think that I'm sick, I'm forgetting that I'm healthy. Wherever I think that I'm poor, I'm forgetting that I'm extremely wealthy. Wherever I feel I'm unloved, I'm forgetting that there's love inevitably, in everything. So not understanding, but you see the beautiful thing about Accelerate Evolution, once you work in process and go through the whole thing, is that you get a sense, we call it a direct knowing of what all this stuff means. In medicine, and I've understood a lot of concepts, but understanding by itself is limited because it's just based on my previous understanding, my previous concepts. Knowing it, when you somehow could know it, and again know it as a direct experience. We have this example, I guess I could put it like this: at a given moment, we are like a cube of ice. If you said, "Who are you?" "Oh, I'm a cube of ice." "Yeah, really? Yeah, look at my rectangular-like shape, and I'm cold, and I'm this color, and I'm hard." That's who I am. Well, when you get a direct experience, when you have a direct knowing of who you are, it's like when you as you think that you're a cube of ice, suddenly you get yourself into water. And somehow you start merging with that water, melting into the water. And suddenly you get an understanding and an awareness that, wow, holy moly, I thought I was just a rectangle and I was just cold and I was just hard. But now that I'm water, I can be so many things, So I don't know if that was confusing enough, but that's what A is to me. It's just a way of experiencing polarities. It's a way of experiencing labels. It's a way of experiencing manifestations in reality in such a special way that gives us the flexibility to then choose what to do.
Well put.
Beautifully
This is, one of the most challenging things that I've had in sharing and training and teaching and getting the word out about accelerated evolution is getting across really what it is. And I've found, I can share a little bit about what it is, but most powerful is an actual personal experience. Everyone's having their own personal experience. I know that's what convinced me. And I know it's what many people out there who have a successful practice in whatever healthcare profession that they're in, whether they're physicians or therapists or naturopaths or chiropractors or, within allopathy or outside of allopathy. What I've noticed is that we can explain things, but until someone has, as you shared, Juan, this direct experience of accelerated evolution, it's just a bunch of theory. But the actual experience, the way I like to put it, is going from a state of stuckness, upset, challenge, obstacle, and that can be said in 1,001 ways, 10,001 ways, depending on what people's got going on. But the end result is always the same, and that is a state of peace, a deep type of peace where this erratic tension and fear is no longer there. There's a sense of wholeness of being that's transcendent of language and words. And there's a feeling of being tapped in, for me, dialed in to the universe, tapped into wisdom, tapped into my own knowing. How would you share how it feels if you to have an accelerated evolution experience for you?
Well, for me, usually when I'm in trouble, or when I allow something to trap me into trouble, I feel closed. So I feel trapped. Trapped either by the circumstances, my beliefs about those circumstances, my emotions about those circumstances. All right. So I'm trapped. And when I use that manifestation of the trap, my anxiety, my pain, my fear, my discomfort, when I use that to work and process through AE, what happens is that the trap cracks and it opens up. And now I'm not limited just by what my beliefs were, or my emotions were, or my memories were, or my body sensations were. But suddenly I feel like I'm connected to, I'm open. Just the fact that I'm open. So that's what I started with. When I'm in trouble or when I'm troubled by something, I feel closed.
Yes.
And my experience, if I could generalize this, is no way to generalize it, but if I could, as I'm trying, will be I open up and connect with endless resources. But at a deep level, at a level where I'm like, wow, I was giving so much importance to this. And after the process, that problem is not there anymore. And I see, just move and do what I need to do. I was afraid about just writing the letter of resignation and handed it, because I have all this panic and all these crazy thoughts and incredible things. 15 years of working with it and processing, and then saying, how simple it is. Let's just go and do it, And it's true for almost any other thing. I mean, I always share this one. A common fear that patients have is fear of needles. And it's just so amazing when you do run a quick process, and you do this, and in 10 minutes, the person's okay, let me go and have my blood drawn or my shots given or, whatever it is, in no time. That's how it is. Removing something that keeps us from, moving on, from seeing, from expanding, from contemplating. So that's my experience as being from closing, from seeing no options, from feeling trapped and suffocated, to opening, to resources, to options, to unlimited possibilities.
Beautiful. And to add to that too, I love what you say about just opening, because this isn't about fighting the illness or fighting that part of you or fighting the fear or fighting the anxiety. This accelerated evolution is more about opening to the inherent essence of who you are, which is everything, really. So it's really beautiful the way you put it, where you're not really breaking through anything or fighting or fixing. It's really just a returning and an opening to that essence of you, where there really isn't a problem. There's just infinite resources and infinite wisdom where you can heal yourself. You're made that way. So as a doctor and as a patient and as anyone listening, that's really the essence of this. It's a returning, because there isn't anything to fix. So thank you so much for sharing it so beautifully the way that you've put it, Juan. Is there anything?
Yeah, anybody that's interested anybody who's in any way interested, more than trying to read how it works and all the stuff, they should just contact somebody that can give them an experience. Yes. That's all there is. You just have to experience it to know what this is. There's you could blah 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 blah, somebody said. That's all there it is. At the end, you just have to, if I believe it will start like the way it started for me. If you feel intrigued, if there's something then you should just contact somebody and say, hey, I want to have an experience. Let me try it and see how it works for you. It won't work for everybody, that's for sure, but it will work for everybody that's interested as well. Absolutely. And that resonates with it.
So beautifully put. And yes, on that note, we do invite you to an experience of accelerated evolution, because it really can't be felt through words. You really do need to have an experience if you feel called to. So we invite you to that, and you can visit www.acceleratedevolutionacademy.com to take us up on that, and we'd be happy to give you an experience. So Juan, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of your wisdom and all of your background. I'm sure so many have related to your story, where you're at now and where you've been. Thank you for joining us on Evolve Here Now. To learn more about our programs, retreats, trainings, and to be a part of our community, go to acceleratedevolutionacademy.com.